"I'm sorry I'm late. The road was so dark tonight. My car broke down by the cemetery. Please let me in." Every hair on my body stood up. Priya grabbed my arm, her nails digging into my skin. Uncle Chen emerged. I should have known something was wrong when they offered triple the normal wage. 3 months without work had made me desperate. My mother's medical bills were piling up like stones on a grave, and I was down to counting coins for rice. The employment agency was my last hope. A dingy office squeezed between a pawn shop and a pharmacy that sold expired medicines. The woman behind the desk had looked at me over her glasses, shuffled through papers, and pulled out a single sheet. "There's one position," she said slowly, "but people don't usually last long." "I'll take it," I said before she could finish. She studied me for a moment, then slid the paper across. "Restaurant work. Place called Last Light. It's remote." Remote was an understatement. The journey there took 4 hours from the city, the roads deteriorating with each kilometer. First, the highway narrowed to 2 lanes, then to 1, then to barely more than a mud track cutting through increasingly dense jungle. My old motorcycle, held together more by prayer than maintenance, struggled through the ruts and holes. As the canopy thickened overhead, blocking out the afternoon sun, my phone lost signal completely. For the last 2 hours, I navigated by a hand-drawn map the agency woman had pressed into my palm, her fingers cold despite the humid day. The jungle pressed in from all sides, a living wall of green so dark it looked black. Vines hung like nooses across the path. Things moved in the undergrowth, not quite seen, just sensed. The air grew thick and wet, carrying the smell of rotting vegetation and something else, something sweet and cloying that made my stomach turn. Then I saw it. Last Light Restaurant, 2 kms, painted on a wooden sign so old that moss and vines had claimed half the letters. Someone had recently cleared just enough growth to keep it readable. Below the name, in smaller letters, had a looked added later, "Good food, safe haven." When the jungle finally opened up, I found myself staring at the strangest location for a restaurant I'd ever seen. It was a modest wooden building, 2 stories with what looked like staff quarters upstairs. Warm yellow lights glowed from the windows, and smoke rose from the kitchen chimney. It would have looked almost cozy, even inviting, if not for what lay behind it. A graveyard stretched into the jungle shadows, its boundaries lost in the green darkness. The nearest headstones were visible in detail. Moss-covered granite and crumbling concrete, leaning at angles that suggested the earth beneath had shifted and settled over decades. Some graves had collapsed inward, creating dark hollows that collected rainwater and bred mosquitoes. Others were marked only by wooden crosses so weathered they looked like skeletal fingers pointing accusingly at the sky. The oldest stones bore dates from the 1800s, their inscriptions worn smooth by time and weather. But it was the newer section that made my skin crawl. These graves were well tended, with fresh flowers that seemed impossible given our remote location. One in particular stood out, a white marble headstone that gleamed even in the jungle's filtered light. Fresh lotus flowers lay at its base. The restaurant's owner met me at the door before I could knock. He was a Chinese man in his 50s with kind eyes, but deep lines of sorrow etched into his face like scars. His hair, more gray than black, was neatly combed, and he wore a clean apron over simple clothes. "You must be Maya," he said, glancing nervously at the darkening sky. I'm Chen. Everyone calls me Uncle Chen. Come, let me show you around before the dinner rush. We need to hurry. Darkness comes quickly here. Inside, I was surprised to find a clean, modern kitchen that wouldn't have been out of place in a city restaurant. Stainless steel surfaces gleamed under bright lights. A massive refrigerator hummed in the corner. The dining room could seat maybe 40 people, with round tables covered in red tablecloths and a small shrine to Guan Yin, the goddess of mercy, in one corner. Incense burned before her statue, the smoke curling up like prayers. A young woman worked at the stove, stirring something that smelled of lemongrass and ginger. She looked up when I entered, and I saw relief flash across her face like lightning. "Thank God," she said, abandoning her post to grab my hands. Hers were cold despite the kitchen's heat. "Another person under 60. I'm Priya. Listen, there are rules here. Important ones." Priya. Uncle Chen's voice carried a warning. "She needs to know," Priya insisted, not letting go of my hands. "No one goes out back after 9 p.m. No one serves table 13. If you hear someone calling your name from the jungle, you don't answer. If you see wet footprints leading from the back door, you mop them up without following where they lead. And if—" "Priya." Uncle Chen's voice was sharp now. "Don't scare her on the first day. Maya, you'll be staying upstairs. Room 3. Priya is in room 2, and I'm in room 1. Get settled, then come down. Dinner rush starts at 6. My room was simple but clean. A single bed with mosquito netting, a small desk, a closet that smelled of mothballs. The window faced the graveyard. As I unpacked my few belongings, I tried not to look at those tilting stones, tried not to notice how the jungle seemed to stop at the graveyard's edge, as if even the trees feared to encroach on the dead. The dinner rush was busier than I'd expected for such a remote location. Truckers taking the old jungle route, travelers who'd gotten lost and found us by accident, and locals from villages I hadn't even known existed. The work was familiar, comforting even. I fell into the rhythm of taking orders, serving food, clearing plates. My feet remembered the dance of restaurant work, and my smile came easily, despite the strange circumstances. Uncle Chen was a master in the kitchen, producing dish after dish of food that tasted like love and sorrow mixed together. Priya and I worked in sync, wordlessly coordinating our movements. For a few hours I could almost forget the graveyard outside, the strange rules, the fear I'd seen in Priya's eyes. Then a small boy tugged at my sleeve. He couldn't have been more than 7 or 8, with round cheeks and serious eyes. "Miss," he said, pointing to the corner of the dining room. "There's a lady at table 13. She's been waiting a long time. My mama says it's rude to keep people waiting." I looked where he pointed. Table 13 sat empty in the corner, set for one with a dusty, reserved sign at its center. The chair was pushed out slightly, as if someone had just stood up or sat down. "There's no one there, sweetie," I said gently. "She's wearing white," the boy insisted, his voice dropping to a whisper. "Like for a funeral. She keeps looking at the kitchen door. She looks so sad. Why won't anyone serve her?" His mother appeared then, face pale beneath her makeup. She grabbed her son's hand hard enough to make him whimper. "I'm so sorry," she said, throwing money on their table. "He has an imagination. We're leaving." "But Mama, the lady—" "There's no lady." Her voice cracked. She gathered their things with shaking hands, shooting fearful glances at table 13. As they hurried out, I heard the boy say, "She's crying now, Mama." We made her cry. The rest of the evening passed in a blur of orders and dishes, but I found my eyes drawn again and again to that empty table. Once, I could have sworn I saw the tablecloth flutter as if someone had brushed against it. Another time, the reserved sign seemed to have moved slightly, but whenever I looked directly, everything was still. As closing time approached, I noticed how the local customers all checked their watches, settled their bills, and left well before 9. By 8:40 only travelers remained, and Priya was gently but firmly encouraging them to finish up. "Kitchen closes soon," she said with a bright smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Long drive ahead, better get going before full dark." By 9 p.m., the restaurant was empty except for us. Uncle Chen locked the front door, turning the sign to "closed" with an air of finality. Then he began what was clearly a nightly ritual, checking every window latch, testing the back door's deadbolt, adjusting the shrine's offerings. "Now we clean," Priya said, handing me a mop, "and we don't go outside, no matter what." We worked in silence, broken only by the clink of dishes and the splash of water. I was scrubbing tables when I noticed the clock above the kitchen door had stopped at 9:17. I mentioned it to Priya. "They all stop eventually," she said. "Uncle Chen gave up replacing them. Time works differently here after dark." At 9:30, we heard the first knock. It was soft, almost tentative. 3 gentle raps on the back door. "Papa?" A young woman's voice, muffled by the door but clear enough to understand. "Papa, I'm sorry I'm late. The road was so dark tonight. My car broke down by the cemetery. Please let me in." Every hair on my body stood up. Priya grabbed my arm, her nails digging into my skin. Uncle Chen emerged from his office, and I've never seen a man look so broken. His face crumpled like paper, and tears streamed down his cheeks. "Papa, please," the voice continued. "I know you're angry I'm late again, but I'm here now. I came to help, like always. It's so cold out here, and I think something followed me from the graveyard." Uncle Chen moved toward the door like a slee. "Ep Walker." I stepped in front of him. "That's not her," I said quietly. "You know that's not her." "I know," he whispered, his voice raw. "But she sounds so cold. What if just this once it really is her? What if she found her way back?" The knocking grew frantic. "Papa, why won't you let me in? I can see you through the window. I'm sorry I died, Papa. I'm so sorry I left you alone. But I'm here now, please. There's something out here with me." That last part made us all freeze. The voice had changed, just slightly. Still recognizable as a young woman, but with something else underneath. Something that made my teeth ache. "What's your daughter's name?" I asked Uncle Chen quietly. "Lily," he breathed. "My beautiful Lily." "Lily," I called out, making Priya gasp. "What was your favorite dish that your father made?" Silence. Then, his special fried rice, with the secret ingredient only we knew. The voice was eager now, hopeful. "Ketchup." He always added a little ketchup, and we never told anyone because they'd laugh. Uncle Chen let out a sob. She's right. That's... Only Lily knew that. But Priya shook her head violently. No, I've heard this before. It knows things. It always knows things. That's how it almost got me my first week. Got you? I asked. I opened the door, she whispered. Just a crack. Just something tried to pull me out. Uncle Chen saved me, but... She pulled down her collar, revealing long, pale scars across her shoulder. It marked me. Now, I hear her every night, even with earplugs. The knocking turned to pounding. The voice rose to a wail. Why are you doing this to me? I'm your daughter. I'm your daughter. I'm your daughter. The lights flickered. The temperature dropped so fast our breath came out in clouds. And then, silence. We stood frozen, waiting. After 5 minutes, Uncle Chen finally spoke. She was driving here in the rain, he said, not looking at us. 3 years ago, next month. She'd just finished her nursing degree, insisted on helping here every night even though I told her to focus on her career. The road curves sharply by the graveyard. They said she died instantly. Sometimes I wonder, what if she didn't? What if she crawled, injured, trying to get here? What if she died calling for me? Uncle Chen, Priya said gently. The police said, I know what they said. He slumped into a chair. But knowing and believing are different things after midnight. I spent that first night lying awake, listening. The building was full of sounds. Creaking wood, settling foundations, the whisper of wind through cracks. But underneath those normal noises was something else. Footsteps on the roof, scratching at the windows. And once, just once, I heard someone try my doorknob. I lasted 6 months at the Last Light restaurant. 6 months of good wages and terrible nights. I learned the rules, and I learned why people didn't last. It wasn't just the voice at the back door, though that came every night without fail. It was everything else that came with it. There was the woman in white who appeared at table 13 after midnight, visible only in peripheral vision. If you looked directly at her, she vanished, but you could feel her disappointment like a weight in your chest. Sometimes she left wet footprints that led from the table to the kitchen door, as if she'd walked through the rain that killed her. There were the handprints that appeared on the windows, small, delicate, desperate. Always from the outside, even on the second floor. Priya taught me to clean them without looking too closely at the faces that sometimes formed in the condensation. There was the thing that lived in the graveyard and liked to mimic voices. It would call us by name, using the voices of customers who'd left hours ago, trying to lure us outside. Once it used my mother's voice, claiming she was sick and needed me. That was the night I almost broke. The worst was table 13 during the day. Sometimes regular customers would try to sit there. We'd redirect them politely, but occasionally someone would insist. Those meals never ended well. Food would spoil instantly on the plate. Drinks would freeze solid in tropical heat. And the customers, they'd start seeing things, remembering things, their own dead, their own guilt, their own unfinished business. We'd find them sobbing into their curry or staring at empty chairs, carrying on conversations with people who weren't there. Uncle Chen bore it all with a quiet dignity that broke my heart. Every night he faced his daughter's voice. Every night he fought the urge to open that door. He told me once, washing dishes while something scratched at the walls, that he stayed because leaving would mean abandoning Lily twice. "This place," he said, "it's not just haunted, it's a wound, a place where the boundary wore thin. My Lily, her death tore something, and now things slip through." I asked him why he didn't just close the restaurant, move away. "Because," he said simply, "someone needs to guard the door. Someone needs to make sure nothing gets out. And maybe one day I'll find a way to close the wound." Priya had her own theory. She'd spent 2 years at Last Light, longer than anyone except Uncle Chen. She thought the restaurant itself was alive somehow, feeding on grief and fear and love twisted into obsession. "Notice how it only takes people who are desperate?" she said one afternoon, prepping vegetables while sunlight still made the world seem normal. "People with sick parents, or debts, or no other options. It needs us to stay. Needs us to witness." "Witness what?" "The show," she said. "Every night, the same performance. Grief and guilt and the thing that wears Lily's voice. We're the audience that makes it real." I might have dismissed her theory, but I'd started noticing things. How the building seemed to breathe at night. How the walls were always slightly warm, like skin. How sometimes, if you listened carefully, you could hear what sounded like a heartbeat coming from somewhere below the kitchen. The night I decided to leave started like any other. Dinner rush, cleanup, the 9 o'clock lockdown. But when the knocking came, it was different. "Uncle Chen?" The voice was older, masculine. "It's me, David, from the police station. There's been an accident. Another car went off the road at the same spot. We need the restaurant as a staging area." Uncle Chen froze. I saw his hand move toward the door. "Wait," I said. "Call the police station. Check." "No signal," he said. "Never any signal after dark." "Then we wait until morning," Priya said firmly. The pounding intensified. "Chen, we have injured people out here. Open the damn door." And then we heard it. Sirens in the distance. Real sirens, getting closer. "Oh, God," Uncle Chen whispered. "What if it's real this time?" That's when I understood the true cruelty of the thing outside. It had learned, adapted. It knew that one day there would be a real emergency and we wouldn't open the door. Someone would die because we'd learned too well not to trust. "The window," I said suddenly. "We can look through the window." "No." Priya grabbed me. "That's what it wants. Once you look, once you see, but..." I was already at the window, peering through the curtain. The parking lot was empty. No police cars, no accident victims. But there was something standing at the tree. It wore Lily's shape, but wrong. Too tall, joints bending in too many places, wearing a white funeral dress that moved without wind. And its face was a hole. A hungry, empty hole that pulled at something inside me. I stumbled back, my nose bleeding. The sirens cut off abruptly. The voice at the door laughed, a sound like breaking glass. "Did you see?" it asked in Lily's voice. "Did you see what love becomes when it rots?" That was my last night. I told Uncle Chen I was leaving in the morning, and he didn't try to stop me. He pressed an envelope of cash into my hands, far more than he owed me. "For your mother," he said. "Be safe. And thank you for stopping me. Every night, thank you for stopping me. Priya hugged me at dawn. "Don't come back," she whispered. "Don't even think about this place too hard. It might follow the thoughts." I drove away as the sun climbed higher, not looking back. But as I reached the main road, I saw something in my mirror. A figure in white, standing at the edge of the jungle, watching me go. When I blinked, it was gone. That was 3 years ago. I found work in the city, paid off my mother's medical bills, built a normal life. But sometimes, on rainy nights, I think about Uncle Chen and Priya. I wonder if they're still there, still guarding that door, still refusing to let the dead in. I looked up the restaurant online once, late at night when sleep wouldn't come. Found a single review from a trucker. Good food, strange atmosphere, don't stay past 9. But it was the response from the owner that chilled me. "Thank you for visiting Last Light. We're always here, always waiting. The door is always closed, but for the right person it might open." L. The review was dated a week after I left. Uncle Chen doesn't know how to use computers. Sometimes in my darkest moments, I think about going back. My mother's getting sick again. The bills are piling up. And I know they'd take me back, no questions asked. Triple wages for those willing to stay. But then I remember that hungry face in the window. I remember the sound of Lily's voice, 3 years dead but still pleading. I remember Uncle Chen's tears and Priya's scars and the way Table 13 was always set for someone who would never eat again. I remember the graveyard behind the restaurant, patient and waiting. And I remember the last thing Uncle Chen told me the morning I left. Some doors should stay closed. Some hungers should never be fed. And some loves become monsters when they can't let go. I work in a normal restaurant now. The pay is terrible, but no one knocks on the back door after closing. No one sits at empty tables. And when I mop the floors, the only footprints I follow are my own. But on quiet nights, when the restaurant is empty and I'm cleaning alone, sometimes I hear it. Soft knocking. A voice I almost recognize, asking to be let in. I think, sometimes, the thing at the last light didn't just mark Priya. I think it marked us all. And I know, with a certainty that keeps me awake at night, that one day I'll go back. Not because I want to, but because places like that don't let you go. They wait. They're patient. And they know that everyone, eventually, becomes desperate enough to return, the last light. Restaurant is still there, in that dark jungle by the graveyard. Uncle Chen still guards the door. The dead still knock. And Table 13 is still set for 1, waiting for a guest who arrives every night but can never, ever be served. If you find yourself on that jungle road, lost and hungry and desperate, you might see the lights through the trees. You might smell the cooking and think how good it would be to rest somewhere warm and bright. The food is excellent. The owner is kind. And if you leave before 9, you might never know what waits outside after dark. But if you stay, remember the rules. Don't go out after 9. Don't serve at Table 13. Don't answer voices from the jungle. Don't follow wet footprints. And whatever you do, whatever you hear, whatever loves or griefs or hungers call to you in familiar voices, never, ever open the back door. Some nights, when the rain sounds like knocking and the wind carries voices I try not to recognize, I dream I'm back there. In my dreams, I'm alone in the kitchen. Uncle Chen and Priya are gone. It's just me and the voice outside, and my hand is on the door handle. In my dreams, I always wonder, what would really happen if I opened it? Would something rush in, hungry and wrong? Or would it be worse? Would nothing happen at all? Would I open the door to find only empty jungle and realize the voice had been coming from inside all along? I wake up before I turn the handle, but each time it gets a little harder to let go. That's the thing about working at the Last Light restaurant. You can leave the jungle, but you can't leave what you learned there. You can't unhear the knocking. You can't unsee the shape in funeral white. You can't forget that somewhere, in a dark jungle by a graveyard, love became a monster that knocks on doors, and grief became a weight that bends the world around it. And you can never, ever forget that one simple truth: some doors should never be opened. Some guests should never be served. And some places, once they've tasted your fear, will wait forever for you to come back. The Last Light restaurant is waiting. It's always waiting, and one day I know I'll return. Because that's what the desperate do. They always, always return.